Hello and welcome to another edition of Spooky News from Spooky Ventures. This time one is for May 12th, 2023. Now we're past the halfway point to the next Halloween. While that means warm weather and all the summer activities for a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere, it also means we're getting closer to the time of year when the rest of the world is on the same page as us, the Spooky Tribe, or as those people like to call it, Spooky Season. Now, before we get to the news, I wanted to remind you of a couple of things. First, if you want to find the sources for any of the things I talk about, you can stick around after I'm done. I include the source URLs at the end of the video. Of course, you can also just scroll down on the YouTube video in the details section, and I always include all of them there as well. Next up, remember, Spooky Ventures, and especially this YouTube channel, are supposed to be interactive. So please interact. You can do that by subscribing to the channel, liking our videos, sharing our videos, and commenting on them. And if you have any news or any ideas for people who I should interview or items that should make it into a future edition of Spooky News, be sure to get in touch with that information as well. First, we're going to look at a couple of spooky travel stories. We'll start with the less creepy of the two. If you're planning a trip to Disneyland and would like to arrange accommodations that are both a bit off the beaten path but also sort of tie into that experience, an Airbnb in Fullerton might be just the answer for you. It's located just about 5 miles from the park, and the unassuming bungalow is built around a Haunted Mansion theme. That's Haunted Mansion the ride, not just any generic Haunted Mansion, although, that would be pretty cool for a B&B as well. The rental includes creepy sounds, spookiness built into all the rooms, and even a cool scavenger hunt. Next, we stay focused on Airbnb, but head clear across the continent and an ocean away by turning our attention to Staffordshire in England. Perhaps it's pronounced Staffordshire. Anyway, we're going there because an abandoned mortuary recently was for sale and started a bidding war. It wound up selling for more than double the asking price. The buyer plans to refurbish the creepy building and rent it out as an Airbnb. So while you can't stay there yet, you will be able to do so in the future. I'm not sure whether we should be hoping that all the dearly departed who passed through the doors left or not. I suppose that's really up to you if you decide to stay there. Now from there, we will look at books, specifically comic books, with this brand new story. If you grew up anytime near when I did, you probably remember Gold Key Comics. I was a big fan of the publisher, devouring their Star Trek run along with Magnus Robot Fighter and lots more. They also published a Boris Karloff horror comic book in those days. That was another favorite. Well, Gold Key is planning a comeback, and horror star Karloff will be a big part of that. Launching with a Kickstarter, Gold Key will be doing Boris Karloff Gold Key Mysteries. Now, the title has the full cooperation of Karloff's estate, and like the old series bearing his name, will feature multiple short story adaptations in one comic book. It is planned as a relaunch of the company Gold Key, and the preview edition will be available only to those who participate in the Kickstarter campaign. They promise it will never be reprinted. The future issues will eventually be available at all comic book stores. A story about a comic book featuring the name and image of an old-time movie star seems a great choice for a segue into our movie coverage for this time. First, I'm going to look at a movie that sounds really interesting to me. It's called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Now, it's said to be a new take on the classic Mary Shelley novel Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. Now, that book has been adapted so many times, but this sounds like a really interesting interpretation. After her brother is murdered, a brilliant young girl who believes that death is a curable disease works to bring him back to life. Since it's considered a horror movie, and given the title, I would think that things don't go quite the way she planned it, though. The movie opens in a few weeks on June 9th, but there is a trailer out there now, and I'll be adding that to the Spooky Ventures trailers playlist. For our final piece of news not from our calendar, we ask the question, if you hear strange sounds, who you gonna call? Well, if that answer is Ghostbusters, and of course it has to be Ghostbusters, what do you do if you are the Ghostbusters, or at least the crew filming the new Ghostbusters movie? Well, apparently when filming after hours in the subway, or as the locals call it, the tube or underground, near Westminster in London, members of the crew for the next Ghostbusters film reported hearing some strange noises, and they were unexplained noises. Now, stories of hauntings of various London tubes, both the stations and the trains, are common, but the sounds the film crew reported are said to have really creeped them out, perhaps because they were all there alone that night. I talked about strange happenings during a filming in last month's Spooky News. Like with that one, I wonder if they got any of these on film, and if so, if it might make it into the movie. Even if it doesn't make the actual film, if they captured anything strange, I hope it finds its way onto the home video release as some kind of bonus feature or something. Now that's it for the news stories for this time, but as I always do, I'm going to be taking a look at our Spooky News calendar. And don't forget, you can scroll down the page at spookyventures.com and find that calendar. The link's right down at the bottom. And we don't have anything on the calendar until 2 weeks from today, but there's quite a bit of stuff starting with that date. That date, May 26th, is the birthday of actor Peter Cushing and also horror writer Robert W. Chambers. Now, the sequel to Becky, which I reviewed a few months ago, The Wrath of Becky, opens on the 26th. The following day, the 27th, is the birthday of Vincent Price and Christopher Lee. Well, that's all I have for this time. Again, be sure to look for the links. I'll also include my review video of Becky in that list to give you a chance to catch up before you go see the new one. You'll find those sources both in the details section of this video and as title cards after I stop talking here. I should be back sometime next month for the next Spooky News episode. Until then, remember, always keep it spooky. It's a lifestyle, not a season. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.